All right, this is going to be a review of the Jenn-Air 48-inch Rise all-gas range. I apologize in advance, it's going to be long. When we were researching this range, which I believe came out in the beginning of 2019, there just really wasn't much available on it online at all. Not from the manufacturer, not from user reviews. There were, a couple write-ups and appliance blogs, which you kind of have to take with a grain of salt. But we really just couldn't find any great information on them. So I want to do just a quick overview of the unit itself and talk about why we chose Jenn-Air over other brands like Wolf or Thermador or Bertazzoni, and also talk about the problems we've had with this unit and why it's ultimately going back and why we're choosing another brand and why we're choosing that brand. So when we sought out a range, we didn't go in wanting any particular brand. We were looking just to get the best build quality and the best performance for our spend. And when we looked at the Jenn-Air, it just ticked a lot of boxes for us, right? So the most important thing for us, other than it being built well and, being from a reputable name, is we didn't want any screens on the front. A lot of these manufacturers are adding screens, which to me just look very dated. Actually, the previous Jenn-Air model has a screen on the front, and so it was great that they did away with it this year. We didn't want to feel like we had this sort of computer coming in between us and just trying to cook, and so it was great that this just had a nice classic look to it, something that felt like it would feel in place in our kitchen for a long time. Just comparing, let's just say just versus the Wolf unit, right? Because the Wolf unit's maybe 1,400 more, the sort of comparably spec'd one. Just on the cooktop, and this is a little dirty. Sorry, we did a big cook yesterday and just haven't done a thorough cleaning yet. But you see brass in the burner there for better heat conduction, just better overall longevity of the part. Three 20,000 BTU burners on the front, two 18,000 BTU burners in the back, and then a simmer burner. Wolf is 15,000 all around. These do go super low on the BTU, so you can do a really low simmer or just a really high cook. So that was really nice. That really jumped out at us. The griddle, we wanted a griddle. This griddle, it's chrome infused. It's kind of interesting. It has non-stick properties, but it's not non-stick. And so what that means is that sometimes it performs, I guess, just exactly how you'd expect. But sometimes it doesn't. Like sometimes you don't get that really good caramelization because it does have, that non-stick property. Does make it really easy to clean. You see some ghosting there. If I came in with vinegar and water and, and a microfiber cloth, I could probably buff that out. But, it generally cleans up pretty easily. There are twin convection fans in the large cavity. These nice sliding shells. You have single convection in the small cavity, just the standard racks. The Wolf only has one glide rack. The rest are standard. Wolf only has single convection in the large cavity and no convection in the small one. So for us, we said, oh, well, that's great. You have all these sort of upgrades in here. Nice slow close on the door. These sort of nice beefy knobs, right? And I'm trying to think if there was anything else that really sold us on this unit. That might be it. There were just those few things we just felt like feature for feature, excuse me, feature for feature, and for what it cost, that we were getting an overall good value. Here's where things started to go bad for us. Almost immediately after receiving it, and it did take like almost 3 months to come in because of COVID. As soon as we received it, we noticed that it would sort of start to malfunction. Like, we'll see if it happens now, right? You go to set it to a temperature, and it beeps at you, right? So that's not supposed to do that. It's just supposed to start, and it's happening again. So we never know if we're going to be able to cook dinner or not. right? Because this has started happening. And you hear that, right? So that sort of thing just starts to remind you, hey, you've now bought a very expensive cooking computer. That's just how it feels to me. Let me go over to the smaller oven here and see if that'll start. So that does start, right? So these lights, blink. They're for the most part pretty understated. Again, that's sort of the kind of thing I didn't necessarily want to see on a range because I just think that stuff like that just starts to look old over time. Anyway, that did start. But again, right now we don't know if we're gonna be able to make dinner at any given time, so that's pretty annoying. Just features that we didn't really notice in the store, but that we're now noticing as we use it more. And that's just a really frustrating thing too, right? You can only kind of look at these in the store. You never can actually cook on them, and it's that it's understandable why, but you don't realize till you get this into your home some things, what the quirks are. So let's just start on the griddle. To my surprise, the manual says do not use metal appliances. Now here you have a metal griddle, and you think about any kind of kitchen, and they're scraping and they're chopping and you can't do any of that. They say use rubber or wood. So think about the kind of cooking you'd want to do on this griddle, and now think about if you're going to be able to do that using just a rubber spatula or a wooden spoon. There are, in some forums online, people talk about using metal without scratching it. I don't know if Jenn-Air is going to warranty that over time if there is an issue, but that really took us by surprise, and that was kind of a downer. In the oven, gosh, this broiler really drops down pretty far, right? It's at least 4 inches of room that it's taking up. That basically makes the whole top part of that oven unusable. Wolf and Thermador and others, they have it. The broiler is infrared and it's integrated basically into the top area, and it's flat. You don't lose any of that. Furthermore, these racks, look below the rack, at least 1.5 inches below each rack. There's these bars that are supporting the overall rack. So that means if you go to put something in here, it's going to bump into that, if it's big enough. And so what we found is we're constantly, like when you're baking, sometimes you realize, oh gosh, I need to move a rack. Well, these don't move that easily. Let's say you have a 400 degree oven going. Now you got to take this big monster out, right, and then try to find a place to put it. And it's not always possible to do that, right? And so, that was just kind of disappointing, basically, to find. These knobs, for the most part, perform well. We did notice on this, I don't know how this happened. It still works, but this knob is now, if you see, it's stuck in sort of an off-centered position. When service came out to address the overall problems we're having, they said, oh, you must have turned it too hard. Well, we push in and we turn, right? Let's say that even we went too fast and kind of caught it. Again, in just a couple weeks of ownership, I was really surprised to see that broke. And that's an expensive repair, apparently. Jenn-Air, oh, sorry, one more thing. Let me just cover one more thing on the burners. This is just a little quirky thing. You see you have high. You have nothing in between here. You don't really know where you are on the setting. Yeah, you can look, okay, low's there. But sometimes you end up getting lost because then they have simmer high and simmer low, right? And so when you look at that, you really don't know where you are. And actually, you only see low and high here. You don't realize you're on simmer. So sometimes I'll be cooking and just waiting for something. And why is this thing taking so long? And it's because, oops, I was on simmer. I want it to be on regular low. Wolf has, they have like a double dotted line or something like that to show you where you are. It's a small little thing, but just something that constantly gets us over and over, even though we're aware of it. So Jenn-Air, for their part, they have been really good from a customer service standpoint. When I called and said that we had an issue, they got a service tech right out. Now, the first time that service tech came out, he was able to repeat a couple times the issue that we had, but then he got each to work, and he said, well, this model's just finicky, is what he said. This model's just finicky, that's just sort of how it is. And it wasn't until we were able to get a video of the problem happening for like 3 minutes straight. We sent that into Jenn-Air. We said, look, we're having this problem. And they said, yeah, that should not happen. This model should not be quote unquote finicky. So they scheduled another service. They scheduled another service. They offered us a gift card for our troubles. Service came out. They confirmed, yeah, this should not be performing the way that it is. And Jenn-Air said, look, we want to replace this for you. Now, the problem is they could not replace it for 6 weeks because of, they say COVID backups. But I learned from the rep that wasn't just a waiting period of 6 weeks for anybody. That was a waiting period for people waiting to have their Jenn-Air appliance replaced. That's what the rep said to me. I don't know if that's the case or not, but that's a little disheartening. They couldn't repair it because the parts were on back order, and really we didn't want it repaired. We didn't spend this kind of money on a new unit to have something defective that is then repaired. And then, we could have waited the 6 weeks, but really seeing these problems just doesn't give us the confidence that this unit is going to go the distance and be something that we have for 10, 15, 20 years. One really weird thing that started happening is these lights out of nowhere sometimes, it could happen during this video, will turn orange, and they'll start blinking orange, and every 30 seconds on the dot, it will emit a multi-beep tone and followed by some kind of a chime. That went on for 2 days once before it just magically stopped. Jenn-Air is aware of that issue. She said, oh, turn this around and, turn that and, it should stop. And it did, and then it would start right up again. We finally realized that we could throw our breaker switch when that starts to happen, and we can get that addressed that way. Again, it's just not something I want to deal with on a range. And so because of that, the units, as we said, okay, let's go back to the drawing board. The units that really started to appeal to us are the ones that were not sort of glorified computers. We looked at Thermador. Again, they have the integrated Wi-Fi, which I don't really get. I suppose people are asking for that. Other than, being out at the kids, sports game or something and, having food in the oven that you want to start remotely, I don't really see, any sort of real great use for Wi-Fi. But if you do, great for you. The Thermador unit, their Pro Harmony unit is sort of the comparable unit to this guy here. What we didn't like about the Thermador in the end was that they did have a really large cavity for their large oven, and you could fit a caterer tray in that apparently. But it made the small oven really small. We couldn't even get one of our dinner plates into that when we checked it out at the store. Also, they have a completely nonstick griddle with some kind of coating. It's not Teflon, but some kind of coating on it. They also say don't use metal. Don't use metal. Only use rubber and wood. So those two things for us that kind of put Thermador out. They do have a small screen on their front. It's pretty understated, so we were going to let that slide. But those two other areas made it not a good fit for us. We looked at Bertazzoni. They're really pretty. They're made in Italy. I think they still are anyway. The cooktop performance is a little lower. It has two 18,000 BTU burners, a 9,600 BTU burner, and then all the rest are even lower than that. We could have made that work, but then this unit, the Bertazzoni, sits flush with the countertop, whereas all of our other appliances kind of protrude a little bit. And it just has more of a delicate look to it. It has that European sort of, very minimalistic look, and we just didn't really think aesthetically it would fit in the, we have this, this big hood, and just didn't think aesthetically it would fit in the kitchen. Interestingly, they also have a stainless steel. They do have a stainless steel griddle, which we liked. Their manual also says don't use metal tools. That's really surprising. We ended up selecting a Wolf, which we have to wait to come in. So Wolf, even though it has lower performance on the burners, I think that's going to be okay with us. I don't know that we're going to notice, 20,000 to 15,000 BTU for the kind of cooking we do. We don't do any wok cooking. I don't think I'm really going to care in the long run if a pot of water takes a couple minutes longer to boil, if it's even that much. Um, Even though it only has, quote unquote, only has single convection in the oven and no convection at all in the small oven, um, there's at least a track record for that unit that makes us believe that it will last for a long time. It doesn't sing to you when you turn it off. It doesn't, you don't have to hit a start button you just go when you cook. And I think, all the features and all that stuff aside, I think that's just what we want. And their griddle is not non-stick. They encourage you to use metal on it, and it's going to get ugly, and they give you a cover to put right over it. I know there's plenty of people that have had issues with their Wolf appliance, but when we sort of looked at it all, that really was giving us what we wanted. And I hate having to pay more for it, but after seeing sort of what could go wrong, I think we're just going to gladly do that. So I hope this video was helpful for somebody. Again, if this Jenn-Air unit appeals to you, in spite of its little quirks here and there, none of them really, that huge of a deal, except for I think the oven, but none of them that big of a deal. And Jenn-Air stands by its product. They were going to take care of it. The current moment right now made that a little difficult for them. So I am looking forward to getting a range where I know every night it's going to turn on for us, and hope this video was helpful. Take care.